Why do human beings obey power? Not because power is always noble, not because people are foolish, and not even because fear explains everything. The deeper truth is more unsettling. Humans obey power because power gives life a shape. It draws the line between safe and dangerous, permitted and forbidden, inside the law and outside it. A child feels this first in the voice of a parent. A student feels it in the tone of a teacher. A worker feels it in a manager's silence. A citizen feels it in the weight of a stamp, a badge, a uniform, a rule. Long before we understand politics, we understand authority. We feel it before we can name it. Thomas Hobbes understood this hunger for order. In Leviathan, he argued that people accept sovereignty because they fear a world without it, a world where life becomes unstable, suspicious, and unsafe. In Hobbes's view, power is not only a threat, it is also a shelter. That is why obedience often begins not with love for authority, but with relief from chaos. And that is the first secret of power. It does not always conquer by force. Sometimes it wins by offering structure. It says, "Follow me, and the world will make sense." That promise is deeply human. People can endure terrible conditions if they believe those conditions belong to a larger order. A battlefield, a kingdom, a company, a class, a nation, all of them can turn obedience into meaning. But obedience is not born from fear alone. Stanley Milgram's obedience experiments showed that ordinary people could be led to administer what they believed were painful shocks simply because an authority figure told them to continue. The lesson was not that humans are monsters. It was that authority has a terrifying ability to silence private doubt and make wrongdoing feel procedural, ordinary, even necessary. That is why power works best when it becomes normal. Once power becomes routine, it stops looking like power. It becomes just how things are. A command becomes custom. A custom becomes morality. A system becomes the air everyone breathes. Michel Foucault later described modern power as something that does not only punish from above, but disciplines through constant visibility, repeated habits, and the sense of being watched. In that world, people often police themselves before anyone else has to. Erich Fromm, in Escape from Freedom, offered another painful insight. Freedom can be frightening. To be free is to choose, and to choose is to carry responsibility. That burden is heavier than it sounds. Many people do not merely submit because they are forced. They submit because surrender can feel easier than uncertainty. Fromm argued that some people seek security by giving up independence to an authority, ideology, or system that tells them what to think and how to live. And then there is Hannah Arendt. In her reflections on Eichmann and the nature of political evil, she warned that terrible acts do not always require a terrifying mind. Sometimes they only require a mind that has stopped thinking carefully, stopped judging, stopped asking whether obedience is still moral. That is what makes obedience so dangerous. It can survive without hatred. It can continue through routine, bureaucracy, ambition, and the wish to belong. In real life, obedience rarely looks dramatic. It looks like staying quiet in a room where everyone else agrees. It looks like following a rule you do not respect because breaking it would cost too much. It looks like a student, employee, or citizen nodding along because resistance feels lonely. It looks like the human need to be accepted by the group, to avoid punishment, to keep a place in the world. That is why power is never just about violence. It is about belonging. And still, we should not pretend obedience is always weakness. Sometimes people obey because they have seen what happens when power disappears completely. Without law, the strong can prey on the weak. Without shared rules, every relationship can become a struggle. Without order, fear grows teeth. So human beings often make a bargain with power. A little freedom in exchange for safety, a little pride in exchange for peace, a little selfhood in exchange for a place inside the system. That is the tragic beauty of power. We resent it, yet we rely on it. We curse it, yet we invite it. We fear its chains, yet we also fear the void that might come after they break. So, when we ask why humans obey power, the answer is not only because they are afraid. It is because power speaks to something deeper. To fear, yes, but also to hope, loneliness, habit, identity, and the ancient desire to live inside an order that feels larger than ourselves. And perhaps that is the final truth. Humans obey power not only because they want to survive, but because they want the world to feel understandable. The real battle has never just been between rulers and subjects. It has always been between uncertainty and meaning. And every age, in its own way, asks the same question: how much of myself am I willing to give away in exchange for peace?